Well, I think we'll start with our introductions at least. That'll give us a little bit of time, but we'll have some folks straggling in, I think, and if not, it's okay. But welcome. Today we are glad to have with us our partners from Lutheran Social Services in Upper Michigan and Wisconsin. Wisconsin and Upper Michigan. Yep. And we heard at the end of worship from Hector, their new CEO and president. And Halvorson is here as well from LSS. She happens to know a lot about Lutherans because she's married to a Lutheran pastor, Brian, who's in West Dallas right now. And we served together in a couple places. So good to have you with us. And you were here for Women's Wellness last year too, I think. So here to share a little bit about the many multiple things that you might not know Lutheran Social Services is doing. Typically, this year they've been a part of our budget. So we make regular quarterly gifts to LSS on behalf of our benevolence through social ministry. Last year, we also donated all of our kind of home items from the giving tree to Refugee Resettlement as well. And a number of folks who give individually as well. So already good support, but to learn more. So welcome. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, good to be here. Well, good morning, everybody. So I can use the mic, but I'm thinking this is probably okay. All right, I see head shaking, so we'll go like this. If you're having trouble hearing either Hector or myself, please just kind of raise your hand and come on in, everybody. So what we'd like to do today is talk about the breadth of the work of LSS and maybe focus in on a couple particular areas of service, human services, if particular interest arises here. I believe this adult forum had Jim Holmberg, who's our Director of Church Relations, not too long ago or in the last year, talk about refugee resettlement. I don't know if any of you were here then. So I'm going to give you an update on that program today too, kind of toward the end. But we have a number of videos, and one of the best ways to understand the impact of what LSS does is to actually hear from the people we serve. So what I'm going to do today is show a couple of those, and in between, kind of talk about that work as we go forward. We can not in any way in an hour cover the breadth of services that LSS does around the state, but we're going to highlight some of those main areas of service and see how much we can cover in the next hour. So this agency, your agency, has been around for 135 years. And it started as an orphanage in Wittenberg, Wisconsin, called HAMI, Home for Children. Anybody heard about HAMI? Head shaking there. It was founded by a pastor, a Lutheran pastor, Reverend Evan HAMI, and who saw a need. And he saw orphan children and the frail elderly who had no one to care for them. So he started 2 homes in Wittenberg, for the elderly and a home for children, orphan children. And both of those places are still in Wittenberg today. There is a home for the aged. It's not a program of LSS, they're independent, but it's HAMI, Home for the Aged. And there's HAMI Youth and Family programs, which is the HAMI Children's Center. Once was an orphanage, and now serves troubled teens and boys, particularly here now. So I'm going to start today with a brief video telling the story of one young man served through HAMI. Let's go. Okay, and you know, Chris, we may need your guy Brian.
Oh, I think I know what the problem is.
Oh, yeah. We're going to start with this one. This is the HAMI one.
Magic.
We may still need you.
I'm 18 years old, and I'm currently enrolled at Wellspring in St. Paul. When I was in 5th grade, my mom was diagnosed with a rare brain disease, in my head, like, she was gonna live to see me do all the things that normal parents see you do. So when I heard that she passed away, it was really hard. I lived with my sister. There were some things that happened, and it was better for me to not be with my sister. So the only option was foster care. I just knew that, like, everything that I had known was gone, and I didn't know anybody, and I was alone, and I was really scared. I don't remember how it started, but people were talking about, like, they had just gotten their driver's license, or like some people had their driver's license. So I mentioned that I couldn't get my license because I was in foster care and I don't have a guardian. And my teacher, Mr. Scheitauer at the time, asked me, well, why not?
And I wasn't really saying it like, hey, I'll be your guardian so you can get your driver's license. I was just like, oh, you just need to get one. Problem solved, right?
Her answer was, yes, if anyone would want me. And that struck a chord.
In my profession, teaching at the high school, you see kids like that all the time. If we took in every kid that was hurting, I mean, you don't have enough home to go around for all those kids. So why this one? I don't know.
I remember talking to one of my friends and I said, we don't know why this one feels so different. Why does this kid that's hurting strike us differently? She said, I know exactly why. She said, I've been praying for that kid like you wouldn't believe.
Next thing, we're in training at foster care, and I meet one of my cousins, Claire, who was in social work. I had no idea she was working with Lutheran Social Services, but I knew she was doing social work, and she showed up to actually collect our fingerprint cards.
I never made a conscious decision like, okay, this is what I'm gonna do. It just kind of happened.
I don't know that we ever made the decision not to adopt her or to adopt her. It just kind
It
of
happened.
like that was the normal thing to do, even though everything wasn't normal.
And the day we signed the papers for the adoption was the day I became mom every day and Craig became dad every day. It was like a switch. And I think the first time she called me mom, I cried. It was a ball game, I remember it.
It's kind of crazy, like, how things all fit together, and like how our family fit together. I was family, like, it wasn't like a question. I can't explain what they've done for me in any words. I'm gonna cry. And they gave me a family, and they have loved me, and I couldn't have asked for more.
So that wasn't the Hami story, but that was a story of a program that soon grew out of our orphanage 135 years ago, because when we had children, orphans in a campus, one of the goals was eventually to get them placed with a family. And so an adoption program grew out of that orphanage 135 years ago. And we have been placing children with families in Wisconsin and Upper Michigan ever since that time. Sierra was one of 300. I think Sierra, this video was done in 2015. So in that year, she was one of over 300 children placed by Lutheran Social Services with families. So we do 3 kinds of adoption. I want to tell you about that a little bit. And one is our domestic program, which places newborns, for the most part, healthy white infants with families through adoption. And that continues. That's actually a pretty small part of our program, though, and there's reasons for that. In this day and age, culturally, things have changed from maybe 20, 50 years ago. And one, there are fewer babies, fewer young parents coming to us and saying we would like to place our baby for adoption, because young women are keeping their children, or because of birth control, there just aren't as many babies available for adoption. So in any given year, we will do maybe 20 to 30 infant adoptions with families. And so that's one piece. The second piece is our international adoption program. And while we work to facilitate adoptions from many countries, the emphasis for us is to place children from the Philippines. It's a big program of LSS in regards to adoption, and we have several relationships with orphanages in the Philippines. Our goal and our priority focus is to really work to place what we would say older children. Our staff just came back with a bunch of pictures and profiles of kids that we need to find families for this year. And there are some little ones. We have a 2-year-old in there this year and a 4-year-old. So they're not necessarily teenagers, all of them. But what happens in the Philippines is if a child is not placed in adoption, children in the orphanage, by the time they're 16, then they need to go out on, they need to leave the orphanage unless special arrangements are made. And what that means for kids is, for the boys, it often means a road to jail eventually. And for girls, it can sometimes mean that they end up in the trafficking kind of area. And so we work really hard to try to find families for these older kids, hopefully before they turn 14, because once they hit 14, it gets harder. The older they get, as you might guess, it gets harder to find families willing to adopt them. So the staff just came back with, I think, about 10 kids. So if anybody's interested, you can definitely give us a call. But we'll be working to find families in the next several months for those 10 children from the Philippines. We also work with other agencies, international adoption agencies like Holt and others, to facilitate and find families. Many of them, as you might guess, come from our congregations and people sitting in the pew. And so we work with them, and so we also place children from China and Haiti, right now Kyrgyzstan, Bulgaria, but a number of countries. So families come to us who have broader interests as well. But the largest number of children we place are like Sierra, and they are what we call special needs or public adoption. So this is to find families for kids who, for any number of reasons, just can't live with their biological families anymore. And they often are in the foster care system first, and then work to agencies like ours, like LSS, work to find families. Sierra was, I think, 15 when she was adopted, and there are a lot of kids like Sierra that are in the LSS adoption program. And we do this work not here in Milwaukee County. There's another organization, and I think it might be Children's Hospital, that has that contract working with Milwaukee County. But LSS does the majority of that work outside and around the state. And we place in that well over 200 kids a year in what we call special needs adoption. So adoption is one of those core, long-time programs of LSS, and the work that serves children across the state and Upper Michigan. And last year, LSS served over 12,000 children. And those services were beyond adoption and foster care, which is a significant chunk of it. But we also have that broad range of residential, which Hami Children's Home is one of those. So I'm going to try to bring up that Hami video again.
Try to help.
Was that?
I can try to help.
Right? So I'm going to hit here, just see.
Grab the one that's a darker color. The ones at top are temporary files status.
Great. Oops.
Yeah, try that. There you go. Fingers crossed.
It's going to do it.
That's Chris.
We did that. We got in the back.
is Hami Youth and Family Programs. Most of the kids that come in here are court ordered to be here.
Most of our kids are here for sexual offenses, but we do serve other kids with other delinquency kind of things, fire setting, conduct disorder, that kind of thing.
We have 3 boys units, and the boys units are made up of the acceptance unit, which is older boys. We also have another unit called Nelson Hall, and the Nelson Hall unit is for younger boys. And we have a unit called Journey Quest, and that's for lower functioning boys.
A lot of them have had severe trauma in their life. They've been sexually assaulted themselves. They've seen people killed, all sorts of complex trauma.
Growing up, it wasn't really the greatest. My dad was a heavy alcoholic. He always beat me. I got moved out of my dad's house, always getting into trouble, never really listened to anybody. Just kind of had the mindset of I'm just going to do whatever I want. I don't care if I get in trouble. I got charged with repeated acts of sexual assault, and I'm embarrassed to talk about it, but I'd rather talk about it than just not say anything, because then it just starts to bother me and I just try to isolate myself. I am grateful that I came here. Once I got to know like most of the staff on my unit and started talking to them, I right away got the feeling that these people do care about everybody, that like all the residents that come here, they try to help them as best as they can.
That's one of the biggest things for our staff, is building that relationship and that rapport. You know, having someone that they know they can depend on. Sometimes it's the first time a kid has had any kind of consistency in their life. You know, we have some kids that get here and, you know, even things as simple as, you know, 3 meals a day, they've never really had that. So it can be, you know, finally the first steady kind of place that they've been.
If I wouldn't have come here, I honestly think I'd probably be in prison right now. When I did this, I was 16, and now that I'm 20 and look back on it, it's just like, why did I have to make such a stupid choice? Why did I choose to do what I did? It's different. It's a lot different.
I think about the kids that connect we have with them. You know, we know they're here a short time. They're only going to be with us a little while. But yeah, we also know that the things that we said with them, it's going to make a difference for the rest of their lives. And we can't always see it, but we know it's there.
Yeah. Thanks to Hami Home.
So Hami Home is the program that grew out of that orphanage many years ago. And as you can tell, in our residential care programs, we're serving kids with really complex issues and complex backgrounds. And as the chaplain said, they're with us for only a short time. So we have just this short time to break through a lot of the walls that are there, and to work with these kids to help them get to a different place in their life. Now, this young man is out, living successfully in the community. He has a job, and he comes back every once in a while, and he did come back and was willing to do this video. And not every kid ends up in this place, and that's, you know, we just got to say that. But many, many of them do. As we work with, what we're finding is kids coming into our care with just higher levels of problems in their life, an acuity level of experiences, their own personal experiences, but acting out in violent and they're really angry. I don't know, Hector, if you would like to say a few words, because one of the things we have experienced, and we're not alone, is the agencies that provide and are treating troubled youth in the state of Wisconsin, probably across the country. The kids are coming to us with much more serious problems, which challenges agencies like ours in being able to really serve their needs. And there's a lot of thought about how do we do that better, right?
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to be here with you and share a few words. I have to say that LSS is such an amazing organization, serving some of the most vulnerable in Wisconsin and Upper Michigan. And we know that there are so many challenges that we face as a society. Right now, there's a child in the Philippines who, through no fault of their own, is abandoned and needs help. LSS provides the help to make that connection with a parent that's willing to serve that kid, to give them an opportunity to succeed in life. There's a person at HAMI that has experienced trauma, sexual abuse, and other trauma that requires a loving, compassionate heart. We're able to do that at HAMI, to give that individual the behavioral health, the trauma-informed care, and the programs to address any criminogenic needs that kid might have, to give them a chance to succeed in life. There's a person out there right now that is hearing voices, that is being traumatized by their own voices, that is really depressed, that has experienced trauma. And we provide that person with compassionate care, with the therapy and community-based services to help that individual become independent. There are so many individuals with disabilities out there, the aging population, that require some assistance so that they can live independently and successfully in the community, and LSS is a great partner that is able to help. And there are so many other things that we do to help some of the most vulnerable in this community. Kind of back to juvenile justice, really the way we have been approaching individuals that penetrate the criminal justice system here in the state of Wisconsin is backwards. For the most part, over the years, we've been incarcerating our way out of addressing these challenges. And we know that approach has taken a significant negative effect on the children, the youth we serve, especially, but also in the adult system as well. Let me just share with you something that we did in Milwaukee County to show you the dramatic results on how we improve the lives of kids, we improve the safety in the city of Milwaukee, and we save millions of dollars. So in Milwaukee County, when I was Director of Health and Human Services there, we redesigned the way we served youth. And so it was less punitive, less correctional focus, more community-based alternatives, more therapy, more trauma-informed care to help these individuals, and not only them, but their families. A lot of times, it's the families that need the support in order for those individuals to be successful. But we've sent, using 2011 as a baseline, we've sent 55% reduction in the number of kids going to Lincoln Hills, and Lincoln Hills is Department of Corrections. We have developed community-based alternatives. We made an investment. None of this existed before I got there in 2011. Community-based alternatives for these kids. And we put risk assessment tools to inform and guide the decision-making. So we're not placing a low risk kid with a high risk kid. Historically, we damaged those low risk kids by placing them with those high risk kids. They learned risky behaviors. So now we informed our decision-making on where we're placing kids. As a result of these efforts, 55% reduction in number of kids going to corrections. Juvenile crime in Milwaukee County is down 57% using 2011 as a baseline. You won't know that sometimes from hearing from the media, but the facts are not my facts, they're actually the Department of Correction data that proves that. Much better outcomes for the kids that we're serving, giving them a chance to succeed. We have saved millions of dollars in that process that has allowed us to reinvest. But without raising tax levy dollars, we reinvest those dollars back into these kids. And so for kids, we need to develop more of these community-based alternatives, develop wraparound services to really not only serve them, but the families, bring the community assets to bear so that we can help in a more holistic way for these kids. There are so many challenges that we're facing. It's going to require partnership. It's going to require us to challenge ourselves. Is our service delivery model the right model to produce the best outcomes for these kids, to do it in line with the funding that's available for these kids, and to make sure that we're making an impact and a difference in the lives of these kids, and to allow us to have the resources to do it. And so I think there are opportunities at LSS to take a look at that, to, in some cases, changing our service delivery approaches to yield those better outcomes, to get the resources that are available to have a larger impact on kids and families in Wisconsin and Upper Michigan.
Could I ask a question?
Sure.
How does that work between an LSS, a private agency, and the county? Do you have a contract with the county, and is that how this program developed?
Yes, so LSS has contracts with many counties across the state and Upper Michigan. And it's through those partnerships that we're able to help those counties, and they provide us with money to be able to deliver those services. With regards to the Juvenile Justice program that I just mentioned, LSS hasn't been a part of that because LSS hasn't done that much in juvenile justice in the city of Milwaukee to date. I hope to change that. We'd like to have LSS at the table and working with Milwaukee County to do more.
So you work for the county, not LSS?
I worked for the county previously. I was the Director of Health and Human Services, and I've been with the county, I've been with the LSS now for 2 months.
Oh, brand new.
Yeah.
So if I might just sing Hector's praises, I'm the CEO of another organization in this field called Lad Lake, which is similar in many ways. But the transformation that you describe, Hector, in terms of that 50, I'm so glad you said that. Not only in terms of Milwaukee's decline at 55%, but when we see the media, we think, we kind of hair on fire. There is like a bursting of violence and crime, and yes, there's an issue. But over the years, the kinds of leadership that you've demonstrated and what we've seen in this across the country, actually, there's been a precipitous decline in violence in terms of juvenile justice and juvenile crimes. And I just appreciate you saying that in your leadership. So thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay. Well, I would like then to kind of move and shift us a little bit from working specifically with kids to some of the work that we are doing with adults around the state. Hector did mention, somewhere there's somebody who's depressed and maybe hallucinating and struggling with mental illness. This is also a significant area of service for LSS. So let me pull up a video, and then we'll talk about some of this work.
Wellspring is a place of peace for women. It's a daytime drop-in center here in downtown Green Bay. Definitely in one of the most lower socioeconomic areas within the community. Many women are struggling with some of the most basic needs. At the moment, they may not have a stable place to live, so they are homeless. Many are struggling with substance abuse and looking to change that, or where they are within their mental health issues. There can be domestic abuse issues that are going on. There are women who have just the challenges of life and need that momentary break.
And we talk about what's on our mind, and people feedback on you and they support you. So by you getting that support, it feels good to know that you're not out here alone.
It's empowering women to find their true self.
I think that not only is it a good thing for Green Bay, it's a good thing for any community. It's a good thing for any woman to be able to have a location where they feel safe.
Without this place, I think I'll be lost. I think I'll probably be in Brown County Mental Hospital or somewhere right about now. This is my second home. Everybody goes, we're not perfect, everybody goes through their little thing. But you have to pray. Pray on it and keep the faith.
The support from LSS is huge. We probably couldn't do what we do today without the backing of LSS. We're trying to focus on the women and we're trying to fundraise at the same time, and a lot of times those things don't necessarily go together. Without LSS's support, we would really have to focus more on fundraising.
So it allows me the gift of doing the one-on-one with the women that come here. It is a sense of peace, and it is a sense of self-esteem and confidence that when you can relax from a moment of all the challenges of daily life, you get that chance to say, wait a minute, I can do this.
And then they give you hugs to let you know that they do care and love you.
I feel like they really gave me hope. When I didn't have any hope for my life, I was in a really bad place. Had a lot of fear. I have issues with the mental illness, and I feel like I've just come about 1,000,000 miles. I'm just thinking what a godsend this place has been. Yeah. That I really don't know what I would have done without this place. I know I wouldn't be anywhere near where I am now today. I am just so incredibly grateful. It's a real special place.
So Wellspring is one of 5 day drop-in centers that LSS has around the state. There's one in Green Bay, Eau Claire, Madison, and 2 in Waukesha. And these are places where we obviously serve people with mental illness, and many are homeless, not all of them. Some have their own place and some have jobs, but do live, I think, in a very fragile way, in a very fragile place. So in some ways, this is a program that serves the homeless, but that's not all that happens here. And it crosses that line between the work that LSS does with people who do not have a home for many, but also a broad range of services for people struggling with mental illness. I think too, oh yes?
Do you have any drop-in places in Milwaukee?
Not in Milwaukee, 2 in Waukesha, and then 3 other kind of main service hubs of ours, which Appleton, the Fox Valley, Green Bay, Eau Claire, and Madison, and Janesville are areas where we really have quite a concentration of staff and service that kind of goes out from there. But we don't have any in Milwaukee. Homelessness is something that we are particularly interested and care about. We also do a lot of subsidized housing, HUD projects, and work as a partner with HUD that provides housing for a lot of people. But maybe, Hector, if you want to say what some of the thoughts are emerging around that as well.
Sure. What I would love to do at LSS is really move towards permanent supportive housing. We have some of it at LSS, but I'd like to really scale it because the results and the outcomes are dramatic. And I'll share with you what we did in Milwaukee County. We set an ambitious goal to end chronic homelessness within 3 years. And we set that ambitious goal about 2 years ago. It's likely that within this next 6 months or the year, Milwaukee County will eliminate chronic homelessness. And it's a permanent supportive housing approach where we provide you with a house, no strings attached. We're there just to love you, to care for you, and to give you a safe place to live. Then behavioral health services are all voluntary. You do not have to take it. It's very light touch. I'm happy to say that 100% of the individuals that are in that program have accepted the wraparound treatment, and 100% of them have behavioral health issues. Since they've been in there, 99% of these individuals remain in that house. On average, these individuals have been homeless for 12 years, and in some cases for decades of their lives. 99% of them remain in housing. 77% of them have some form of income. 27% of them are now working. And the more they work, the more they contribute, and the more people that we can end up helping. With this population, we have saved Medicaid $2.1 million. We saved our own behavioral health division, which has a hospital, an emergency room, and crisis services. We saved them $750,000. We saved the criminal justice system over $500,000 as there were less jails, less citations, less judiciary. It's the results and the return on investment is amazing. So now coming into LSS, I'm trying to learn about the homelessness programs and try to see if there's opportunities for us to move in this model. We'll have to do some fundraising and getting foundation support, getting counties involved, getting the state involved. But I believe LSS could be at the forefront and really playing a critical role at eliminating chronic homelessness, not only in Milwaukee, but across the state of Wisconsin and upper Michigan.
So I'm gonna just pause here and just see if there are any other questions so far. So I think what I'd like to move to now is to share a brief video again on refugee resettlement, bring you up to speed on kind of what's happening in that up and down world with LSS, and we can talk a little bit about it there.
My name is Omar Mohammed. I'm a Somali Bantu young man, and I currently live here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I have a small family, just started. I was just married last year, in May. We were fortunate to get a baby right away. I love my baby. I left Somalia when about 1990s, either 4 or 5. I think I was either about 5 to 7, around that age range. We had to walk from all the way Somalia to Kenya until to the borderline. But then I either walk sometimes, or sometimes my dad helps me put him in his shoulder. Yes, it was a long run. It was a lot of famine. People did not allow to eat. A lot of people died on the road. Most people eaten by wild animals because you're walking on the bushes. Those who are lucky end up coming here in America. I ended up coming here when I was 17, and that was in 2004. So the process took a while.
This is the Refugee Resettlement Department of Lutheran Social Services. It's been active through this agency since 1974. What we do is that we work with a national agency who accepts allocations of refugees being admitted to the United States, and we are then given the responsibility to welcome them and help them get their start in life.
They resettled us. They welcomed at the airport. There was a case manager, and there was a church members who was volunteering at the time, and they all welcomed. They brought some jackets for us, some flags, little flags for us, took us a picture. And that church is still with us up to this day. They still keep checking on us.
We really have to take them by the hand and let them know that there is somebody that's going to be here more intensively at first, but very much we're going to teach them how to become more independent, help them learn the language, help them get a job.
I'm very fortunate to be welcomed by LSS. I mean, refugees are coming here, don't know anything. Like, you don't know the currency, what it is. You don't know how to pay your rent. You don't know anything, basically.
When I hear some of the things that have gone on with refugees, I just don't think that people can ever truly appreciate what refugees have gone through to get to where they are today. To be hunted down, to be threatened, to have them threaten your family, to have them kidnap your loved ones, to coerce you. We take so much for granted here, and refugees bring that to light every single day in this office.
Refugees do not choose here. They come here to survive for their own livelihood.
And when we accept refugees, we are demonstrating democracy. We're demonstrating freedom.
I have a lot of love for this country, because they give me a chance to survive and strive. I'm very grateful. Refugees need your help. Support the refugees, welcome them, integrate into your community, see them, help them, donate to them. They're human and they're in need of it. And as human, we need to do. I think that's what some of our moral duties to help our other humans.
So this has been quite a year for our refugee resettlement program, but it looks like at the end of the fiscal year for refugee resettlement is through October 31st. So we're nearing that, and LSS will have resettled 260 refugees between Milwaukee. We have a resettlement office, and we can resettle about a 50-mile radius around Milwaukee, and then one in Madison, and then a 50-mile radius. We had planned to resettle 500 refugees this year, and given the executive orders and then the kind of uncertainty back and forth over time around those executive orders, the number of refugees coming into the country has decreased significantly. But they're still coming. And for those who have been approved in the process before the executive order of this year, most of them have really kind of come through for us, we believe. But, and then there's a special group that are people who actually assisted the American military in other countries. And so for their services, whether they were translators or drivers or whatever, they are allowed to come through and resettle here. And so we resettle a number of those people. So here's what it's looking like. Our partner through the church, the national church, is Lutheran Immigration and Refugee Services. So there are 9 agencies like LIRS, one would be a Catholic organization and others. There are 9 that work with the federal government to receive refugees. And then LIRS is the Lutheran agency, and then LIRS receives them and then kind of rations them out, what's the word there? Signs them out to the Lutheran agencies across the country, of which we are one. And LIRS is struggling also with the impact of some of the decisions. So we just got an email that said they're laying off 13 staff at our national offices. You know, that has an impact on us as well. We're down 5 staff, but we've done that through attrition, and we're holding there for now, partly because when the executive order happened in January, you people and fellow Lutherans across the states responded financially, and we were able to raise well over $100,000 that we just started to pull from, and it's helped us maintain some stability in our program and will help us into the next year. You may have heard the Siebert Lutheran Foundation offered a $30,000 challenge, which we just met, and they're joining us in this effort to keep our program. Because here's one of the concerns. If we would get to the point where we wouldn't be able to keep our program, it's awfully hard to start a program again once you've closed it. So we really don't want to go there. Because we do hope for a day when the numbers will increase again. We were on a track of resettling 500 refugees a year, and this year it's 260. We are planning next year for, I think the numbers are 190 for Milwaukee area and about 70 for Madison. That's what we're planning on and gearing up for that. So part of that will just depend totally on kind of what happens here with the executive order and the challenges to that and what decisions are made. But we continue to resettle refugees. That's a long-standing commitment of our national church and of the agency here on behalf of our churches. So we want to continue to do that. I don't know if there's any questions about that program. Let me look here. So I want to be mindful of time. This, help me out, this usually goes till what time?
About 5 minutes.
Okay, 5 minutes. So what I'd like to do is really in general, open it up and then just ask Hector to kind of talk about, he has a little bit his own vision, but what he sees before us as an agency.
You want to start off, any questions?
I'm curious about your situation. What led you to move from a county position to LSS?
Yes.
Tell us about that.
Sure, thank you. So I was approached by the board chair, John Hallman, who is looking for the next president and CEO. Several people recommended my name for him to speak with me, and we did. And I'll be honest that I've always had a dream to run a large nonprofit organization. I'm a product of a nonprofit organization, United Community Center, so I've seen the benefits on me personally, and that was always something that I wanted to strive for. Once I had that meeting with John, I was really impressed with him as a board chair, but then I learned a lot about the organization. I did a lot of due diligence, and so not only has it always been part of my dream to run a large nonprofit organization, but the services that you have that truly impact the lives of the most vulnerable also attracted me, and your mission, having Christ in the mission, was a big draw for me, being a man of faith and being able to be a part of an organization that I could be open to talk about that. And that was why I joined the organization. Thanks.
I work at Community Advocates Public Policy Institute, and one of the things I notice is, one area that I think has got a lot of potential for us in how we run our affairs are social impact bonds, or organizations like Lutheran Social Service do interventions that lead to much better outcomes. But it seems to be it's often competing for the crumbs that are left over to fund such programs.
Right.
And yet the outcomes are much better, and you cited quite a number of studies that show that the outcomes are better.
Yeah.
And that there would be a contract with the governmental organizations that if these outcomes are achieved and maintained, that some of the funding that's saved goes to sustain these efforts. And I don't think that that's being realized to any great extent in particularly in Milwaukee.
Yes.
The enormous amounts of money that we spend on incarcerating people for an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure.
Absolutely.
And I wonder if you see that in your vision at all.
Absolutely. I'd like to explore social impact bonds. I think it's a creative way of bringing investment dollars that haven't historically been there. And I think there are a lot of programs that LSS runs today that could be well positioned on collaborations with that. One is school-based mental health. I've learned, and I'm learning more about the school-based mental health model that Lutheran Social Services has. And that's where it's at. That's where the prevention is at. That's where you can do the wraparound services, early intervention, and really wrap around those services to families. So I want to continue to learn more about where we operate with excellence, where we produce those great outcomes, and how we can attract other creative financing mechanisms to attract those dollars so that we can scale those programs. But I see school-based mental health as one that early intervention, great outcomes, The return on investment is great. Housing, if we did the permanent supportive housing, again, great outcomes, huge return on investment. There are others as well. Thank you, and I look forward to partnering up with you. And you guys do great work over there, and Lad Lake too.
All right. Well, one, we want to thank you all for joining us here this morning and thanking this congregation for a long history of support. If I pull your record, that annual support goes back before we even started in our current record keeping. So that's a long partnership. And we would not be able to do what we do without the support of individuals in our congregations, because we're in it as a partner with government, but also with the church, and we kind of bring that together. So thank you all very much.
Next week.